Okay, if we have about 50, there are about 15 more online, then hope we can start. Okay, hope you can hear me clearly. Please let me know. Sometimes there can be connection issues. Right. So last time I discussed with you about the contracts and discuss some say preliminary ideas about price, value, etc., which is important for us to sort of understand uh, when we evaluate certain arrangements, how they work and how good they are, etc., and how to sort of motivate others. For all these different purposes, understanding the relationship between price and value is useful, right? So I'll be referring to this as we go on further also. Then we looked at some technical uh, aspects or technical details of different types of contracts. So where we stopped last time was drawings and specification type of a contract, where there is that lump sum price contract, right? Um, so specific, I mentioned to you that specification, technical specification is quite simple type of a contract that we can go to. And in construction, we have drawings as a major part of technical specification. Actually, it is technically described in the building. So in addition to technically describing using text, uh, especially in construction, we find it very effective to use drawings, because drawings can communicate things faster than written text, right? If you have to write to describe correctly, I don't know whether you can do that. I mean, technically, right? All these technical details on how to construct or what to construct. If you happen to write without drawings, I don't think we can trust. That's so we have drawings. So I think that we have drawings. So because of drawings, we communicate a lot of things through that medium that we may be, but extremely difficult for us to do if we had to use text or writing or typed text to communicate that. So talking about this idea of specification-based contract, so the term that we usually use in the industry is drawings and specification contract. And if you say it is a drawings and specification contract, as I mentioned, it we go with the lump sum price contract. So if you're going with a different type of a contract, we have to specifically say that. But if it is somewhere mentioned, it's a drawings and specification contract without any further description, then it is reasonable to assume that it is a lump sum contract. Okay. Then we can move to the next type of a contract, performance specification. So comparatively, a performance specification and a technical specification, we can easily understand from something simpler than a building. That is like a computer, let's say. So you can specify it technically. That is a technical specification where you specify everything like the processor, the motherboard, the memory speed, memory capacity, then say graphics card capacity, speed, or even some keywords also, so that we want to get those. And so that is technically specified. However, we understand that we use this computer for a certain purpose. So why we technically specify that is because the expected use of the computer. Now, if it is for a simple office work, we would go with the say not high-end specification, normal specification, no graphic cards, etc. Special graphic cards we can use onboard graphics, right? Likewise, we would go. But if it is for a specific task like video editing, so if you are a YouTuber or somebody, and sometimes you would need uh, more graphics capacity and editing capacity. Then you might go for better processor, higher speeds of system and memory, and also you might have include a dedicated graphics card, right? Uh, However, that you decide as the client and specify, so the supplier can supply. That is a say technical specification, the technical specification based contract. However, an alternative is rather than you technical specify, you specify it based on performance. Right? Your specification comes as a performance specification where you specify how your computer should perform by considering the work that you want to do. However, when you specify that in a manner that it is testable or verifiable whether the performance is there. Okay, so therefore you have to give it more, say precisely. It cannot be vague, right? Say, for example, you must say that the, the the computer should be capable of compress 1 hour 4K video uh, to a certain format uh, in 5 minutes. Right? So that is the capacity, the performance capacity you are looking for. So the supplier will look at that performance requirement, then design the computer. That means develop the technical specification of a computer which can do that performance, offer that performance. Then tell us a price. Because when he knows the technical specification, they can price it and tell us a price. So if we agree for the price, then he will supply it. Now, after it is supplied, then we should be able to see whether the supplier has fulfilled the obligation. So how to test? So we have defined certain performance. So we just check whether it can be done. So for example, 1 hour video or 4K video compressed in 5 minutes. Just simply ask the supplier to do that. Okay. So if it can be done, yes, it is fulfilled. Otherwise, it is not. So a performance specification based contract is something like that. So the obligation of the supplier is specified based on certain performance levels the supply should have. Now, in our case, it is our building, right? We specify how the building that is built uh, should perform. Now, in terms of building, we don't see similar kind of performance like a computer, but performance should be there. So it's basically related to its capacity levels. Okay, so for example, to house 4 batches of 250 university students. Mm. 4 batches of 250 students in each batch. So it will be 1,000 students, but at a time, you should be able to house 4 batches of that size. Okay, so that is a performance requirement. Likewise, you can specify performance in terms of indoor thermal qualities, right? Lighting levels, so various things that is necessary. Uh, Provide the specification. Okay. So once it is done, so it will be for the bidders to see what is to be provided in terms of performance, then do a basic design that they can verify that this can be fulfilled and the price for that, right? So how they do will vary. However, when you enter into a price, you have to know what is to be delivered. So contractor will have to know what is to be delivered. So then only the contractor can say judge for a price. Okay. So the agreement is that the contractor offers. Now we prepare the performance specification as the client. Then we ask the bidders to bid for that project. So they offer us, we will deliver you a building which will perform like this for this price. Right? So we say the price is based on the employer's requirements document, which is developed into a performance specification. Right? Employer will know what is needed, and that is employer's requirements. Right? So to that, few things to be added. I will discuss about those. Then the performance specification is ready. So the bidders, they will go through the specification and decide how the building should be, then price it and give the offers along with the performance spec will also part of the offer. So in this arrangement, we have not technically specified a thing. So we give the option for the bidders to decide how they are going to fulfill the given requirements. So there's flexibility to the contractor when they sort of get engaged in the project. So the requirement is that defined performance is to be achieved. So if it is simply a performance specification contract, the idea is this. Okay. Now the challenge here is that you have to specify, because the agreement now, it is not drawings and specification, right? There is no design. So you have to specify what is to be there. And you don't specify contractual, the contract is not bound to provide that. Right? So if you imagine something simple, like there are, you have multiple levels or multi-stories, right? But you don't specify that there should be access between floors, right? So that performance you don't specify. It has to have several levels, several floors, but you don't specify that there should be access. Right? So you, the contractor can give you a building with say 4 stories if you have asked for, but there is no any access to upper floors, no staircases and nothing. Right? So you can see that this is not that simple. Now, when you go to do this practically, what happens is that the client can't do it alone. Client will require professional input, because client will have, as I'm saying, a construction point of view is a learning. right? So client will know what client wants from the building, but client will not go into detail saying that I need say a staircase, I need a corridor which has enough space for people to uh, walk both ways. Likewise, client may not say all these things. Client would say that I'm, I'm getting, we are starting a new degree program, and there will be 250 students in a batch. To accommodate this 4 years degree program, we need a new building. For that, I need a building with 250 capacity in each floor for 4 batches. That kind of a thing the client would say. Then this client's briefing has to be developed into a more a complete document, which is, as I said, has to be in a manner that you can sort of verify whether the agreed obligations are fulfilled. Now, how to approach this practically? How do you make sure that all the things that are important are covered in our performance spec? How do you do that? Why do we need professional input there? The professional input is there because we understand that what client says is not complete enough. So we have to complete the balance. What sort of things we have to complete? Do we go and write all the things which are to be there in the building, or how do we do that? Any idea? Hmm? No, we don't do that. We don't have to write all these things like uh, various uh, details about fine details about spaces, etc. There is option. We will take the scenario, right? Now the contractor builds a building, right? And when you look at the lecture hall, now we asked for 250. Field can have only 150, about 150 students in new experience as a client, right? Not as a consultant, as a client. But it's same, about same size of my other 150 students class. So this is not 250, this is 150 at least. Then you tell the contractor, look, this is not 250, this is 150. No, this is 250, I'll show you. Then he will bring 250 students and get them to sit in that lecture hall. There will be 250 students sitting in that lecture hall. Of course, you know how, but anyway, but they are, so there is not much space in between them. There is no way uh, lecturer can walk in between lines. No, nothing like that. They are fully packed. And however, there is 250 students. And contractor will say, see, we can include 250, no problem. We have done our part. But since there are 250, you can't say no also. If you just set the whole for 250. So how do we overcome this kind of problems? Any idea? Hmm? Any idea? Just because there can it can have 250 like that is not what we want. How do we overcome this kind of challenges when we specify? Hmm? So what we do is we include various norms design standards, right? Um, and guidelines, etc., and even regulations. Right? So we can include UDA regulations, fire regulations, and various such regulations. So you have to say that the building should comply with those. When you make the building comply with those, then many things are covered. Right? They can't cut corners. Not everything. Then we can also refer to certain design norms like architectural design norms. So there are various norms. I'm not very familiar, but just say I have seen many of our students use certain norms, such as there was something called architects. These norms will tell. I don't know whether they are called design norms, but say certain design standards or guidelines. So these will tell if for a certain type of a building per student in a lecture hall, this much of space is needed. So by referring to those things in our performance specification, we avoid the chance of getting into confusions, as I explained earlier. So referring to the standards is quite important. Not only standards, regulations, norms, guidelines, various things. Is an important part in performance specification because say, some may not tally. Some standards may not tally with others. So if you specifies standards which are not somebody who is knowledgeable about those things is needed. So professional input is needed, still important. Actually, so this defined performance that is very well defined like that is what is to be achieved. Okay. So usually the performance specification contract also by standard is used with lump sum price contract. If you say it's a performance specification contract, right? If you say it like that, so it will be by default used with a lump sum price contract. Now, when you go with performance specification contract with the price-based contract for the payment part, like lump sum contract, uh, it is natural that the contractor would uh, try to offer the price with uh, say this expensive method of construction with this expensive material. So you are going to have the minimum price that you can get for that performance. I mean, we are not giving a design, so they will come up with a design which is most economical. So that is the major advantage here. If you give a design, then they are restricted to that design. We are not giving the design, then they can come up with a design. Make sure that to make sure that what you required as given in performance spec are fulfilled, then you get what you want for the cheapest price that you can get. So the challenge here is to draft the performance spec because say if you miss anything contractually, no, you are not likely to get it. And the other thing is handling variations may also not be easy compared to the pre-measurement contract. Okay, any question? Do you have any question? Right. So if you don't have any other questions, we can move further. Next, I will look at those price-based contracts. Right. So the price-based contracts, we had schedule of rates, schedule of prices, uh, approximate BOQ, and firm BOQ type of contracts. Right. I will go to my whiteboard. You should now see the whiteboard. If you don't, let me know. Right. BOQ is something I believe all of you are familiar with, right? I will just think of something and put on an example, but it is not a perfect one, right? So we have usually a reference number to start with. See that line, doesn't matter. Then we have the item description. This can be item, also item or reference. So some sort of reference number is there. Then we have the description. Um, then we have the unit of measurement. Then we have the quantity. Then we have the weight. We have okay, so these are the headings. We have certain numbers, descriptions, maybe main headings. Then we have descriptions. Okay, so I will just take one hypothetical example. I will say it's section E, concreting. So E1, hold on. Have we say measured in half of the client, the consultants, use of right items like this, and based standard method of then a quantification on the design, and the balance is not kept blank. So this BOQ is what is given to various bidders to price, right? So the bidders will come up with their own prices, right? So for ease of calculation, I will include something like 5,000, which is too cheap. So, just put it, yeah, for ease of calculation. Okay, 5,000. Then the amount, keep it simple, I will make it 500 so that I have enough space to write it here. So we get the amount by multiplying these two together, the amount. Likewise, we will have various items. We rate quantity, we include the rate, and we get the amount. And finally, we get the total. Then this total will be taken to another summary sheet, and from there, we will have the total for all the works. So that is how it works. Right? A BOQ. So this is the BOQ format, basically. Right? So this BOQ forms a part of contract, and it defines how to make the payment. Right? That is, it is in BOQ, it is usually defined how to make the payment in regular contracts. Right? So when you enter into a contract using a BOQ, we have two types. Right? One is called bills of firm quantities. Right? Then another type is called bills of approximate quantities. Bills of approximate quantities. Now you can see both are bills of quantities, but in one it was firm quantities, the other one approximate quantities. So what is a firm? Quantities are firm. What is approximate? Quantities are approximate. Both are bills. That means these schedules, right? And quantities are firm here, quantities are approximate here, right? So we'll go with bills of firm quantities. So what do you understand by the word firm here? What is firm? What is the meaning of firm? Hmm? What is the meaning of firm?
Exact quantity of something.
Exact quantity, fixed. I heard somebody say. Yes, good. I think the word fixed, exact is also another way of saying that, but I think fixed is more relevant because firm can mean different things also. Say company also we call a firm. That is not this firm, right? Here, firm means not changing, right? Firm means not changing. It is firm, not change, right? So what it means is that quantity. Now, what is firm? Quantity. So quantity is not changing. Okay. Quantity is not changing. How do you understand this idea? So quantity is not changing as per our agreement. So we agree that the quantities are not changing. Okay, that means we agree at the time of contract that this 100 cubic meters for columns is the quantity, and it will not change later. When? When we make the payment. Right? So the agreement is that. Okay. So we agree at the time of agreement, time of agreeing for the contract, it can be any time. That is, this can come as the offer or the bid. Then once the client accepts it, there is a contract. Maybe later you can sign a formal contract. Both parties sign, witnesses, etc. In single document, so it formulates the contract. But even without that, we have the contract. Right? Now there we agree this 100. I'm taking this one as one example, but all the items of the BOQ will be like that, right? So we take this item as an example. This 100 will not change. At the time of contract, we agree to this. Okay. Both parties are agreed. Now, you start construction work, right? You start construction work, and while you go on with the work, then now today you are concreting the columns. You have completed few, but say about 1/3 more is to be done. But you know that you have already used this 100 cubic meters. How do you know? Well, of course, with the truckloads of concrete that you brought in, given an allowance for wastage, etc., you will know how much of cubic meters you have actually used. Right? And we have reached the 100 cubic meters limit, but about 1/3 of columns are yet to be concreted. But you have already completed 100 cubic meters. But as per the drawings, there are more columns to be concreted. What will you do? Will you continue to concrete the rest of the columns, or will you stop concreting the rest of the columns? As the project manager, what will be your decision? Hmm? Anybody? Hello? What will be your decision as a project manager? You are sure that you have already reached 100 cubic meters of columns. Will you stop the balance or continue to concrete the balance? Hmm? Anybody? Logendra? Is it my problem? I can't. No, you are not. Or our get together group? Anybody from there? Is it clear? Now you have agreed under the contract that this 100 will not change. It is 100. Right? Concreting for these columns is 100. And we have agreed it will not change. What else is not changing? Okay, in a contract, what will not change in it? Will others change that? Hmm? How about this? In a BOQ-based contract, will this change? $500. What is 500? Nobody is talking today. You already started the party. Oh, I can't hear you. Okay, it's unit rate. So unit rate is, what is it? Is it a
by the contract?
So it is a price, right?
Yeah.
Unit rate is, we call it rate basically, but it's unit rate. Actually, it is unit price. Will it change later after the agreement?
Can't,
right?
Yeah.
In a basic contract, it cannot, but we have some provisions to change it, but that we add to our contract. If you don't add that, it will not change, right? So in a basic contract, it will not change that because it is a price-based contract. So you have agreed for the price, and that will be the price. That will not change. Now, in addition to that, we have agreed that this will also not change. My question is, how do we address that effect when you are doing the work? Right? Now we have already concreted 100 cubic meters, and as per drawings, there are more columns, but already 100 is done. So my question is, no, you are a project manager, so it will be, say, you might be a construction project manager or site manager for that. So as the contractor, if you are the contractor, will you stop concreting or continue? And what is the logic?
You can continue the construction, keeping the provisions that variation will be covered the cost overrun.
Variation will be covered the cost of. Okay. What is the variation?
The quantity exceeding 100 kg.
But was there a variation instruction of issued?
It has to be given.
So that means until a variation instruction is given, you stop the work.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Any other answers? Now this use of firm
If it is indicate it is as per the drawings, it has a priority, no? So according to the drawing.
According to drawing, yes.
Yeah, so they have to comply with the drawing specification.
Yeah, good point. So then you don't stop. Is that what you mean? You continue to do?
Yes, can't stop. No.
Okay. How about then the payment?
Payment. This is I said design and build.
This is not design and build.
No, it's a lump sum. Okay.
This is say technical specification. Drawings and specification can be there because this is a BOQ based contract. So when you are going for a BOQ based contract, it is usually with the drawings and specification. So that is there. That's why I said
grant the payment. No? In that case,
we can or we can't.
Can.
Okay. So assume actual quantity is say for simplicity, I will make it say 200 actual quantity. So how much do we pay for that work? So if we multiply, then it will become 100,000. How much do we pay? 100,000 or 50,000 or something else? Think. Now, the key point is that use of quantity is the document for payment. Right? So as you said, yes, we can't use this as the document describing the contractor's obligation. What is contractor's obligation? It is to build the building. How? As per the drawings and specifications. The contractor's obligation is to build the building as per the drawings and specifications. Okay. So if there is an issue there, then a variation can be offered, but there is no issue, then they have to build as it is. So if there are a certain number of columns, right, they have to be built according to the drawings and specification provided. Right. Just because BOQ says half of the number of columns, you can't just build half of the columns and stop and wait for variation instructions or anything. Because that is the contractor's obligation. But when it comes to payment, now we have to have a concern. So how we decide on that, right? So when we decide on this, what happens here is that we have agreed that there are 100 cubic meters of concrete in these columns at the time of signing of the contract. So we have agreed that this is firm. That means this will not change. This will not change for what? For the purpose of payment, because this document is for the purpose of payment. This is not the specification. This is the BOQ. BOQ is for the purpose of payment. Right? So for the purpose of payment, this is the amount that we have. It doesn't matter how much actually is there in columns. We have agreed that it will be 100. Right? So at the end, the payment is based on 100. Right? Not this. Actual quantity is 200, of course. But at the time of agreement, we have agreed that this will not change. This is 100. Right? Accordingly, the payment will be based on that. Okay, so the risk here is that the contractor bears such risks, quantitative risks. So the contractor has to identify, just assume the contractor identified that. Right? Contractor identified that at the time of bidding. Right? Contractor identifies there is about 200 cubic meters, not 100. Now, you don't have to measure everything in detail to identify the quantities, right? There are shortcut methods of in rough quantities. So based on that, so bidder's check identifies that there is 200 cubic meters. Now, if it had been 200 cubic meters, right, and at the nominal rate of 500, just assume it is still 500, even for 200, right? So 500 at this rate, assume that rate is the correct rate, okay, should receive. But if the bidder puts the correct rate here, we'll get, and this column, the bidders can't change. Bidders can include rates and amounts, but can't change anything that node, right? So bidder can't come here and change. This has to be, so the bidder, but to get 100,000, the bidder will include right. The rate for 500. This 500 is not included here. Instead of that, to get this value here, that is necessary, because this is what is being paid, right? Not this value. To get that amount, the adjustment is done here. By doing that, the correct value is taken. Then that is what is included. These are not being included. This is just for information assured. So the real rate is 1,000, and because this quantity is from, to make the adjustment is done here. Here you can't do the adjustment. So to get the correct amount here, the rate is adjusted. That sort of a strategy is used by the bidders. By doing that, the firm quantities contract is established. Then at the end, what is paid is.
So this is bidding.
Sorry?
Prior to the bidding, no? This change.
Yes, yes. This no change part I showed you is a calculation done by the bid. He does not change anything. He just include the which can so that he get even with the error he get the correct amount for the correct quantity. Say correct quantity is 200. So that 200 you must get 100,000 as the amount. Get that 100,000, what is the rate to be included? So it is a sort of a backward calculation. So forward calculation using the correct quantity and get the amount. Then from the backward calculation is done, get the rate and included it there. Only for erroneous quantities. If the quantity is correct, this is not done. Okay. Right. Now, this bills of quantities, what is the effect then? Then the payment is made when this work is done. So when 50% of this work is done, 50% of amount will be paid. 100% of the work is done, 100% of the amount will be paid. And they will not actually remeasure the quantities, right? Because there is no reason to remeasure. Because agreed, how much of quantities there is agreed, whatever the real quantity, it doesn't matter. What is paid is the quantity as per the agreed BOQ. So they don't worry about the real quantity. So when the work is complete, the complete amount, etc., that is from the overall bill. But for the work, the 100% of amount is approved. That is based on this. But you can see, therefore, this is fixed. This is anyway fixed, right? And this will be fixed. This is trade, so it is fixed. And the quantity is now also fixed. So these two are fixed. So the multiplication of this will be fixed. That means later it will also not change. As a result, the total will not change. And effective, this will become a lump sum contract because the totals will also not be changing. Right? It's a fixed price for the total project, a lump sum price. Fixed lump sum price. If there are, this price will not change. The total price will not change. But the important thing here is that we have a complete breakdown of the price, right, in a BOQ, which we can use for various things, starting from the bid evaluation, right? Then, say using that for variation. Okay, so bills of quantities, right? Both quantities and unit rates forms part of contract, of course. The other one also we have some bearing, but how we take it is different. Our usual BOQ based contract here, say they won't change. So we fix both quantity and the unit rate. So for this reason, we are of course say putting more risk to the bidder's side or the contractor's side. So to minimize that risk, we have to give the bidder fully completed design so that then the bidder can identify if there are any quantity errors, etc. Then they can make the adjustment as necessary to the price. Okay. And when we enter into the contract, because say design is fully completed and how much to be paid for each different work item is very clear, and say it is certain how much to be paid. Right? There is no change to that also. So both parties' commitments are very clear. And not like a simple lump sum contract where also you have the price certainty for the client. Client know the full price the client has to pay, right? Here we have a detail of with the detail better and is useful. The good thing is that we can compare the bid on because finally it is a lump sum. That of course say we have to errors will be quite significant challenging. So we have to minimize such errors. So the design has to be fully completed, and also we may spend extra time in build preparation because we have to make sure high accuracy of BOQ. Of those quantity errors will be with the bidder. Now, clients QS will prepare the BOQ. Clients designers will do the design. Right? But any error in BOQ will be the bidder's side cost. Bidder's side risk. Okay, and if it occurs, it will be the bidder's cost. Okay, so as a result, it may say those errors will require the bidder to price strategy. Now here in my example, it was about 100% change, right? It was about 100% change. Okay, but say if it was a smaller change like 10%. So the bid increase rate by 10%. So still closer to the market rate. Still closer to market rate, right? Because quantity cannot be increased by 10%, but the contest therefore increase the rate by 10%. And some they did not have detected it. So we don't know whether the bidders have detected the error or not. Can you understand? You just assume, right? So actual quantity is 110. Okay. Actual quantity is 110. Okay. So the market rate or the rate for the bidder is 500, and that is the market rate. So this should be 55,000. Okay. Now this is for the actual quantity, but this cannot go. What happened is this quantity, actual quantity is 10% higher than the given quantity. So since the quantity cannot be adjusted, what the bidder could do is increase the rate by 10%. So and include it here. So when you increase the rate by 10%, it will be 550 because this cannot be increased. So the rate from the market price, the bidder increases to 550. Then the bidder can required amount. That is that. However, or proof the bidder has identified this, then adjusted the rate because this is available. Now I showed you how the bidder would think, but that available in the agreement or the contract. Okay, so therefore, it is difficult to say whether this rate is strategically adjusted or not. But say for a good bidder, it is required to be adjusted. But what if the bidder did not see that error? Then we had to assume that the bidder has included this rate for 100 quantity because the bidder assumed that. So then when we have price a variation, we are confused whether this price is the normal price or whether that is a adjusted price. So going with it as a normal price, you can see there's a clear advantage for the bidder. Right. However, it is little better than not having anything in reference, but because then variation will be more challenging. But not the same way as being controlled. Okay. Is it clear? Any question from that? Then we have approximate quantity. We don't say this will not change. We will say this is close. Right? It's close. Close to the real quantity. Okay. So up to this point, the client will provide. And the bidder will include the rates. And so these rates are the best rates that they can provide because they are supposed to be competitive. So out of these rates, the one who gives the best.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Can you hold for a moment because our connection has been disconnected,
Okay.
sir?
Can you confirm when it is ready?
Yeah, yes, sir. I will tell you, sir. Now, okay, sir.
Right. So in use of approximate quantities, we only agree that this is near, closer to the actual quantity. Right. For that, we agree, but how we price is that for this 100, this is our base rate, and accordingly, this is the amount, and that will be the best amount that we can offer for that quantity. Likewise, all the work height total will become going for our final price. Okay. Now, the difference here is now it is not firm, we say it is approximate. That means it can change. It can change. Okay. Now, when the work is done, it becomes 110 actual quantity. Okay, now this is what is agreed. This is what is agreed. Then the actual quantity when the work is done is 110 cubic meters. How much do we pay? There is an approximate quantities contract. How much do we pay? Chamrik. Actual quantity is 110. BOQ quantity at that is in the agreement is 100. And we have agreed that it is approximate, it is close, but not fixed. How much do we pay? Anybody?
55,000.
55,000. So I assume it comes like this then. Use 500 as the rate. 110 into 500, 55,000. Got it? I'll ask it again. Right? Actual quantity, I'll change that. And for ease of calculation, I'll change it to 10. Actual quantity is 10. How much do we pay per second? That is the final quantity for this work item. Actual quantity. You're not here.
50,000.
Still 50,000. How did you get 50,000? Because earlier 50,000. Yes, anybody? Madhurigi? You were saying something, I couldn't hear.
It's an approximate value, so I can change.
So is
There
it
may be a little variation, but not.
So how much do we pay? That is my question. We pay 5,000. 10 into 500, do we pay 5,000? Or not? Nobody's talking. Do we pay 5,000 or not?
Yes, we are paying 5,000.
Okay. Others?
Yes, I think so. We can't pay 5,000 because of it is not a approximate quantities as estimated.
Yes, I think that is what Mudlike also said. So it is not approximate, this is not close. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes, so that is the case. So there is some bearing when we say approximate. This word blank. This 100 has certain bearing in our contract. It can change, but we have agreed it is approximate. Now, when we talk about this, actually, this concern is coming from the idea or the economic principle of primarily related to that actually. You can understand it from the same point of view, which is called economies of scale. Actually, there are these economies of scale also. What is that idea? Even though you may not know it economics point of view, but you may have some idea of economies of scale. What is that?
Yeah, economies of scale means that is maybe a correct value, correctly valued.
Yes, but actually this is related to the cost of an organization, cost of production of an organization. Now, here, cost of construction, economies of scale and diseconomies of scale. So economies of scale, we'll first look at it. What is that?
The cost is calculated correctly. I mean,
What do you mean by correctly? If it is actually 10, if this quantity had been 10, now here it was 100.
Yeah.
The BOQ, if this had been 10, would you still include 500 here or some different value? Get my point? Just assume the quantity was 10, not 100. And for 100, you include 500. But if it was 10, would you still include 500 because it is your unit rate, or you would have a different unit rate? Any QSs here? At least. Normally, you may have your own, because without knowing this item, you may not be able to say it exactly, but usually what would it be? Will it be 500 or will you look for a different rate?
The rate may be higher than 500.
The rate may be higher, right? So that is the idea of economies of scale. That is when you produce more quantity, the unit cost is less. Now this actually coming from production side. Say when you produce certain item, right, in an organization company, right? So when they produce item, there is a fixed cost for that production, right? So how many numbers you produce, the fixed cost is there, like overhead costs, say building rentals, and all these things are not changing based on the amount of goods that you produce. So those are fixed costs. Then there are variable costs primarily related to the material inputs, labor inputs, energy inputs, etc. So when you want to produce more, proportionately, you have to increase the material, increase the labor, increase the energy, etc. So those are variable. So this variable cost is sort of almost equal, whatever the number that you produce. But fixed cost is now divided. See, if you produce 10 items with that fixed cost, so the fixed cost is divided by 10. But if you produce 100 items on the same day, then the fixed cost for that day will be divided by 100 for each unit. But as a result, when you produce more and more items, the unit cost becomes less. So when you have lesser unit cost, then you can offer a lesser price. So when you have 10, then it may be, say, the rate is 600. But if you have 100 as a quantity, right, then you would be able to offer a better rate, like 500. That is because when you have more quantity, your unit cost drops. So that idea is called the economies of scale. And this is coming actually as a principle in economics. That is there. That is economies of scale. So when you have more quantity, you can give a better unit rate. Right? However, when the quantity goes further higher, then there can be certain issues, right? Like say 1,000. So after a certain quantity, diseconomies of scale will kick in. How? That is, when you reach a certain capacity, beyond that, it will become more challenging. Right? So beyond that point, probably you may need to work overtime. Right? So when you go for this overtime level, then the labor rates go up. And laborers may be too tired and the quality of the work might drop, which requires more rework. And you may have more machinery failures because of overworking. So as a result, after a certain limit or certain boundary, when the quantity goes beyond that, then this diseconomies of scale will start to affect. Right? Then your unit cost again will go up with the increase of quantity. That is diseconomies of scale. Then you have to ask as the rate will also go up. Right? So so based on this quantity, what rate applicable can vary. So that is the idea of setting this approximate, right? So when it is near 100, okay, this rate is okay. When it is not near 100, of course, this rate is not okay. In that case, we have to find appropriate rate. Okay, how do we address this? Now, assume the actual quantity becomes, right, 120. Okay, so how do we know this is approximate or close enough or not? Is it close enough or not? Can we apply same 500 or do we need a different rate? How do we decide? What do you say? Is it approximate enough or not? Dilhan? How do you know? What do you think? 120 is close enough or not? Can we use 500 or not? No news. Anybody?
So usually what we do is up to 10% increase in quantity. Up to 10% we will keep 500 as it is. If it is more than 10% up to 25%, the rate may be decreased by 10%. If it is more than the quantity is more than 25%, I will more than 20%, the rate will be reduced to 20%, something like that.
Okay. Right. So how did you find that 10%? In the
Usually it is in the contract data, it is there.
Yes, that is fine. So we define this in our contract. The meaning of approximate. We say that if the quantity exceeds by 10%, or maybe another percent, and we may have various different ways. So if the quantity exceeds by 10% and the resulting change is more than say 0.1% of the contract sum, then a new rate has to be agreed, is what I knew, right? Whether we include rate to reduce, I'm not sure whether that can be done or whether that is fair. But the thing is, we include that clause that the rate should be adjusted or a new rate should be agreed. So in the contract, we define the meaning of approximate, even though we don't use the word approximate there, right? We don't define it using the word approximate, but that is what we do. We define the meaning of approximate. So if within this limit, it is close enough. If it is beyond that limit, it is not close enough. Right? Then if it is beyond that limit, what to do? We agree. Okay, so the approximate quantities idea is that, and this is our normal remeasurement contract. This is our normal remeasurement contract. Okay, that is where we agree for changing the quantity to the real quantity. In addition to that, we also agree this given quantity is approximate. Our normal remeasurement contract, right? Or we call it measure and pay contract, because usually we have that clause, as Mohammed said. What we have done is actually we have agreed for base of approximate quantities contract. Where we agree that this quantity is approximate. And how do we know it is approximate? Right? When it is given, when an actual quantity is found, then we refer to that statement where it says a deviation of this much is acceptable. If it is more than that, a new rate has to be found. How to find? Yes, we have to follow certain method given in the agreement. Usually, we follow the variation pricing method. Okay, so that is base of approximate quantities contract, and you must understand this is your familiar type of contract. Okay, so generally, as a general judgment or guidance, if we can go for base of approximate quantities contract, that is the preferred option, because then the price certainty is very high. How much you have to pay is very clear. But if we cannot measure the work highly accurately, then base of firm quantities contract has too much of risk. And therefore, it is not recommended. Then what is recommended is base of approximate quantities contract. So when we go with that, of course, we have the unit quantity. We have the quantity, then we have the unit rate. Based on that, we actually can have an estimated amount because our quantity is estimated. So based on that, we have the unit rate. So because quantity is estimated, then the amount is still estimated because of the fact that quantity is not the final quantity, but an estimate. But the unit rate, of course, that is final, no change to that. However, because of that, the amount is still estimated. Then when we get the total of the amounts, then we have the price for the project. But that price is not certain because it can be adjusted on the actual amount of quantities. However, we have a reasonable close figure for our price, final price, because quantities can, of course, vary up and down. Based on that, the price will be adjusted. Actual quantity, right? So the entire work will be remeasured. So we will measure it first. Those are our approximate quantities. Then the work is done. It is completely measured again. As and when the work is done, we do that. Then we get the payment. So the unit rates forms the, of course, other things also form the part of contract, but unit rate is the firm item in terms of the contract. Quantities, as I said, are not firm or are agreed, but of course it also has certain impact on the contract agreement because it defines whether some real quantity is approximate enough for same rate. Right? So when we go with this type of a contract, of course, there is less pressure to fully complete the design because, you know, when you go for firm quantities contract, of course, a lot of pressure is there for the design team to make an accurate design, perfect design, virtually completed. At the same time, of course, QSs will also have pressure to come up with an highly accurate BOQ. However, when you go with approximate quantities contract, they are less pressurized. I'm not saying that they can do a poor job. It is not. Right? They still have to do a good job, but the thing is, the pressure on them is less. So there is some sort of flexibility for them to make corrections later on. Okay. And therefore, we can actually sign the contract or get into the agreement before fully or virtually complete the design. So as a result, it will have lesser overall time. And here there is no risk for the bidder for the quantity errors, right? Yes, but if there are sort of large deviations, whether there is a risk to the bidder is still a concern because then it will go as a variation sort of a pricing or new price has to be agreed. So depending on the engineer's nature, it might become challenging, right? And of course, extra expense on say developing a bills of firm quantities. Remember, it is not about QS's work, right? It is also about design teams work. They also have to fully complete or virtually complete the design for QS to come up with the BOQ, right? So anyway, that whole process will require extra time and money. Right? So that additional expenses are there. However, of course, if you compare that with the post-contract stage, where we have to use again somebody to do the measurement or remeasurement. And that time is required, whereas in case of firm quantities contract, we don't do remeasurement. That is not necessary. Okay, so just imagine or compare this with your the normal contract, the remeasurement, or we call it measure and pay contract that you're familiar with. This is that. Okay, then we have another two types. One is called schedule of rates. So this is similar to BOQ, but no quantities are used. So it will be in a similar BOQ format. But at the time of entering into contract, there will be no quantities. What we will have is the rate. Okay. Now, the rate is to be entered by the bidder, so other party that is entering into the contract usually. So the rate, until this point, the client prepares the document. After that, and you enter into the agreement, this rate is completed. So I will include something like 550 for this item as the rate. Okay. So likewise, for many different items will be there, and for each item, work item, there will be unit measurement and a rate. Okay, and this document is prepared using SMM, standard method of measurement. What is the role of SMM? Why do we use SMM in measurement? Why can't we just measure without referring to an SMM? Contractually, why is it important? Contractually, why is it important? Any idea?
It provides the uniform basis to work with who are the people who work with.
Yes, it is unique in a way. However, the full answer did not come. Yeah, thanks. It's a good start. Yes, anybody can contribute to that. She talks about being unique and say many parties coming in kind of an idea. Can somebody develop on that? Contract from the contractual point of view, why an SMM, standard method of measurement, is important? Now, my earliest construction experience was when we built our own house, right? I was in grade 6, 7. That was my age, and I was my father's project manager, right? Because of course he went abroad to work, and that's how we were able to build our house. Otherwise, we could not. So, however, he was not there, and my mother, she might have been capable, and she also was involved, but most of the work I looked after. And however, that was my first experience. So we agreed with what we call them Basundahe, the charge hand. Oh, that is how it done. So they come with gang of laborers and do the work. So we agreed for rates. Say, for example, walls, we agreed for a certain rate per square foot rate, right? And when he presented his bill, the quantity was too large than what is billed, right? I before he came for asking for the payment in an evening after they went back. So I had measured, and the quantity was quite large, significantly larger than what I measured, right? So then I said it should be less than that, and we went for joint measurement. Of course, I did not know these terms, etc. It was just with the impulse we went with that. So when we measured together, and he first measured the walls, then gave the quantity. I said, why don't you deduct for the windows? You did not do that part. I think it was for plastering. So why don't you deduct for windows? Then he said, no, we don't deduct for that in our rate. I can see the problem of our agreement contract, right? That is, we had not agreed for the same. right? So he, because later only I realized that it was the normal practice among, because of the difficulty of this completing the rebuild. So they, for that cost, they include that window area. But the problem is that we have, or we had not had what is called consensus ad idem. Remember, in contracts, we talk about agreeing for the same thing. But we had not agreed for the same thing. Our mind, we had assumed it different than how he assumed in his mind. That was because we were not following any SMM. We went with our gut feeling and interpretations. But if we had gone with SMMs are very clear on how to measure, right? What voids to be deducted and what should not be deducted, and what items to be measured and what should be included, right? But should not be measured separately, but to be included. And what unit of measurement to be used, whether it is to be square foot or square meters or cubic meters or linear measurements like meters. The same thing can, like, say for example, a beam can be measured in linear meters, as we did our house. The beams are measured in linear meters. Not, yes, beams are measured in linear meters. Okay. How the cross section is given. That is how, right? So likewise, cross section is given, and for that cross section, a linear meter. But in this example, say column, again, columns are also measured in not meters actually, in feet. Right? Beams are measured in feet, columns are measured in feet. Now here, in my example, columns are measured in cubic meters. So why that is there is because we have to have some understanding of how to measure beams. So the SMMs provide a clear standard on how to measure. Then anybody would measure it the same way. So any cubist, whoever measures that, will be the same thing. And the other party, so both parties then will know exactly how much the quantity for that and what is to be deducted is not, etc. That is why an SMM is important. So in preparing this SMM, say in the history, they have considered various things, and now we have quite good SMMs covering all different aspects. So we need to use that SMM because both parties should agree for the same. Now here in this example, we have to define what SMM we are using in our agreement. So based on that, we have our unit rates. Right? Then when the work is done, we measure the quantity as per that SMM. Right? So the bidders will insert their rates. If you go for bidding or if you go for negotiation, we negotiate for these rates and agree for the final rate. If you go with bidding, so the bidders will insert their rates. Then competitive bidding, so the bidders will insert their rates. So out of those bids, we will select one, and that we accept and form the contract. So this is coming from the other party usually. Maybe after that, we might negotiate and get a rate tag. So when the work is done, then we measure this quantity using that SMM, right? Referring to that SMM and include it here. Okay, that's so according to this SMM, we measure. Then we find the amount and pay. So this column therefore will become the quantity. Next one is the amount. So this is at the time of contract signing. Up to this point, then the balance is when the work is done. Okay. This is before the signing of the contract. So we sign the contract with this. Then when the work is done, we find this, we make the payment accordingly. Is it clear? So at the time of agreement, therefore, when you sign the contract, these are not there. So as a result, you cannot total and get the total sum. So you don't have any pricing information, total price information. You have only unit rates, right? Price per unit. Only that. So these will not be there. As a result, you will not know the total commitment. So the contract sum, even a closer figure like approximate figure, as in approximate quantities BOQ, we don't have it. Right. So we don't know the total contract sum or the final price. That is not even predictable using this one. Okay. The other thing is the idea of economies and diseconomies of scale. Now, in absence of quantities, given a unit rate is challenging, because if the quantities is low, then you will need a higher rate. When the quantities are higher, you can give a better lower rate. But since you don't know the quantity, then it is challenging. Right? So therefore, they usually, to minimize the risk, bidders will include the rate which is little higher than the normal rate for large quantity. So theoretically, we use this when it is difficult to predetermine the likely quantities of the work. That is because it is not defined to extent of the work. Okay, understood. However, the challenging part here is that how to decide, especially if you want to go for competitive bidding, how to decide which bidder to be selected, that means awarded the contract. That is because, say, if there are, say, assume there are 100 different work items, right? So there are 100 different work items. Okay, and there are 10 bidders. So if you include them into say you have the BOQ items here, 100 items, then bidder 1, bidder 2, likewise you include. So you will have in an Excel file. So we'll have 100 by 10 table here. We call it 100 by 10 matrix, right? So where there will be 1,000 different cells. So if you take the first work item, then you will compare, right? You will compare to see whether that is the best rate across all 10 bidders. So you compare it with 9 other bids for that price, right? Compare it with that. Then you compare this with bidders' other rates, because there are another 99 items. So if have the bidder given better rate for other, how are they? Then what about other rates of others? They are also important to consider. Right? So when you consider one rate, in decision making, you have to consider, right, 999 other rates. right? You have to consider 999 other rates. Okay, then you are not only considering one rate given, you have to analyze or evaluate 1,000 different rates. And for each of these 1,000 different rates, for each of them, you have to compare that or consider 999 others. Impossible. Right? Therefore, bid evaluation will become really, really challenging. If you had something like 10 and maybe 5 bidders, of course, you are in a reasonably okay situation, but still it is challenging because we don't know which one is best. Right? However, roughly, if you know kind of project that we are having, then we know, okay, so having a better rate for concreting is better than masonry. So even the mason rate is better, we can go for this bidder. Likewise, you can make a decision. But if you have about 100 different work items, and usually it is there for even for a smaller project, and across 10 bidders, of course, it is impossible. Right. So what has happened is to overcome this, what is called schedule of prices is introduced. In schedule of prices, what happens here is that client will identify various work items, right? And also include the market rates, current market rates. Okay. Then ask the bidders, right? Ask the bidders to give their discount. Right? You can see it here. Right? That be say more work items like that. Then unit of measurement according again still same like schedule of rates. Only difference is that, right? Say the rates are given. So current market rates are given. Then ask for a discount. So when they give the discount, they can give a positive or negative discount. Usually this word discount is used instead of even it isn't just adjustment to the rate, right? You asking them for an adjustment, but instead of asking for an adjustment, you ask for discount because indicate or promote the bidders to give a lower rate. Because when you ask for discount, that is given. So anyway, the bidder can give an adjustment. Now, for bidder, if this is roughly 550, then bidder can give not a discount, but an adjustment of negative 10%. Negative 10%. Because it is a discount. That means negative discount means a positive increase. That you can understand, right? A negative discount is a positive increase. So it is an increase. So the bidder's rate will be therefore increased by 10%. For this one, maybe the bidder does not give a discount. So it is 0%. For this one, bidder might be able to give a 20% discount. Okay. So you ask for a discount. Right. Now, practically how this happens is actually you don't ask for discounts individually. Right? You ask for a discount right? For the section, say for example, concreting. The whole concreting section, what is the discount? Right? For the whole concrete section, what is the discount? So you might, okay, for concreting, of course, I can't give a discount. I will need minus 10%. That means increase of 10%. Right? Then there may be another thing called, I don't would say key mason. Then items there. For that, say 15% discount. Okay, so when the discount is given, then we know that all these things are discounted accordingly. So this is minus 10, so the discount is actually positive. The bidder's rate is 550. This is 11. This is 165. So these will be the bidder's rates based on this discount. So when later, when the payment is made, then we identify the quantity. Right. Then we find the amount based on that. So we identify the quantity. This is the actual quantity. Then for that quantity, based on this rate. Right? Not based on this rate, registered rate. Usually this is not included. Only the discount is shown, but based on the discount, actually some they include the discounted rate. But what is binding is this one and these ones. Right? This one to this contractually binding. Right? A discount for the given rates. A discount for the given rate. That is what is binding. And based on that, the agreement is made. Then actual quantity is found. Actually, these can be found at that point. These rates. Then make the payment. So that is schedule of prices. Now, both are schedule of rates, but done in a different way. So why this is done in this way is actually to enable competitive bidding. It's not like comparing each and every rate. Now you compare the discounts of these few work item sections on. Right? So major sections only. So there can be 5, 6 major sections in the project. And for each section, there is a discount. Then you can compare these discounts and see which one is best or which bid is the best to go with. So this is done to enable that. Okay, however, the disadvantage in this is that, say for example, the bidder here asks for minus 10%. Primarily because maybe this one, because this rate is quite too low. So if there is a large quantity in columns, then say the rate is not enough. So the bidder needs that rate. However, bidder may be able to give a discount for this one. But since this cannot be given a discount, bidder might not include that. Maybe reduce this a little, but not much. Right? To balance the risk. So that is disadvantage is there when you go with this kind of setup, because the discount has to be given to the whole section. Okay, otherwise you can go for schedule of rates contract. So this method is quite practical in a way. When you consider schedule of rates contract even, that is, of course, you can quickly enter into a contract by using a past project's BOQ. Say, for example, if it is a school building, then you can figure out what kind of a school building that is, then find the BOQ from a similar school building, which is done using the standard method of measurement accordingly. Then simply take that, delete the columns, delete the quantity, rate, amount columns. Then you have a schedule of rates. Because most of the items which are going to be there in that building will be there, right? And some of the items may not be there. Say, for example, this E3 may not be there. But that doesn't matter, because if E3 is not there, then this quantity will be 0. No work of that nature. Then the amount paid will also be 0. So nothing will be paid. So there's no issue, right? And if there is a certain work which is not there in the schedule of rates, still not a big issue. You simply agree for a new rate for that following the variation proceeding. And there will be not so many items like that, because many of the items are likely to be already covered in the previous vehicle. Right? So it is a faster way of getting into a contract. But of course, it is not easy because the rates, now you agree for rates in absence of quantities. And of course, you can't go for competitive bidding also in a schedule of rates contract. And schedule of pricing contract, of course, you can, but still, how to judge? Right? If you compare two bidders, bidder A concrete rate is 10% higher than bidder B, and bidder A's masonry work is 10% lower than bidder B. Right? So how do you decide which one is better? Of course, you need cost experts to decide, to help you decide. And that is a big task. Okay. So from that angle, again, not certain amount of work will be there and professional input will be there. However, say given the scenario, you can go for it, right? Because say it offers you the opportunity of appointing a contractor at a quite early stage, if you want to, right? And if you use schedule of prices, of course, the word prices, I don't think is coming from any specific reason. Just because I believe that is just to differentiate it from the regular schedule of rates contract. Right. That is the only reason I could find. So just another name to differentiate these two. Okay, so while the challenge is there, of course, the usage, right? The usage of this with certain standards will improve the industry familiarity. Now we don't use this, but if we use this regularly, then the industry will be more familiar and they would have better pricing strategies. However, you have to have some standard list of work items, there are quantity, there are unit of measurement, so that probably published market rates, then it's easy. I think that is there for some. What about, do you do this kind of ones? Oh, I think you don't do this, but you have some standard rates and you can pay for anybody at that standard rates or something. So this standard rates practice is there. However, say you can improve that by introducing this discounting item. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so give me a little break, so you also can take not a long one, 5 minutes, right? Then we'll continue. Okay, it's 3:36 here. So.